Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to yet another edition of the Pure Digital Passion Podcast with me, Moses Kemibaro. My guest today is Kamal Budhabhatti of Craft Silicon, Little Cab, and also BluBeetle, a new AI business that he started that is sort of spinning off from his technology enterprises. Kamal is somebody I've known for the better part of 20 years, since I think as early as the year 2000, when he started his business, Craft Silicon in Kenya, prioritizing and focusing on the financial services sector. Kamal has since ventured into other businesses such as Little Cab, one of the corporate-focused taxi hailing app businesses. And most recently, Kamal is also venturing into AI with BluBeetle, where he's creating propositions that tap into the power of generative AI for his customers. Thank you so much for joining us, Kamal.
Thank you, Moses.
Yeah. So, Kamal, we go back a long way, I think, within the technology ecosystem
Yeah.
of Silicon Savannah, since you started Craft Silicon. But I want to go back, Kamal. I want to know your origin story. Where do you come from? How did you get into technology? How did you end up in Kenya? Please share that story so that we can really appreciate the journey that you made to where you are today.
Wow, that's a long story. Well, so I come in from a family of three.
Okay.
So I have an elder sister and elder brother.
Okay.
And yeah, so I did my schooling in India.
Okay.
After the schooling was finished, I got into my college.
Okay.
During the last year of my college, I had a friend who was in Kenya.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah. And you know, the way it works in India is the best of the best class after the schooling gets into medical.
Mhm.
The next guys get into the engineering, and everyone else gets the remaining lots. They get into biology, physics, and chemistry. And the people in that lot always end up doing programming in the side because they know that they may not get a job based on physics.
So it becomes a side hustle.
It's a side hustle. So I had a side hustle of learning computer programming.
Yes.
And so on my last year of my graduation, I had a friend who was in Kenya, and his company was looking for some guys in tech.
Yes.
So he called me one day, there's an opportunity, you want to come in?
Yeah.
And the way, again, it works in India is, you know, if you get an opportunity to go abroad, you leave even your half meal, you leave and run.
Wow.
So that's how I came here. And, again, it's like a ceremony in India. I mean, now things are changing, but at that point it was like, you know, when you go to abroad, the whole family and the relatives and like one person is going, but 50 people will come to see you off.
Wow.
So yeah, that's what happened. And I ended up in Kenya working for a company here.
Uh-huh.
The work, I came in with a lot of hope, ambition, and I thought I was going to change the world. But the job that was given to me was pretty boring. It was more or less a data entry operator. So you know, you would given an invoice stack in the morning. You keep keying them
manually
the whole
keying
day.
them in. Wow.
And then, you know, that was your work at the end of the day.
And meanwhile, you're a software developer. You're at least you know how to
Yeah.
develop software.
Yeah. And I think I've always been pretty lucky. So where I used to stay as a paying guest next to my house was an IT manager for a bank.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And his bank was looking for a banking system.
Uh-huh.
That being a very small bank, they had no budget. And they felt maybe I can help them something. So that's how it started. So there was one module I did for them that was for clearing.
Uh-huh.
It worked out well. Then they said, okay, now put savings to that. So I did that. Then say put loans to it. Then combine everything. So that's how the whole journey started.
At this time, it's still an independent individual job. You're not really Craft Silicon yet.
No, it was not Craft Silicon yet.
Yeah.
So and then I was doing this as a part time, you know, in the evenings,
Yes.
weekends, while having a job wherever I
Yes.
came for. And I was caught one day that, you know, that I'm also doing something outside.
Yes.
Okay, it has its, you know, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but the owner did not like it. So he said he was going to send me back. And yeah, and immediately on that day in the morning, he said he didn't like it. And evening, he shipped me back to
Oh
India.
my God, the same day?
The same day.
No time to talk,
No time to
discuss,
talk.
negotiate.
The whole day he made me sit in his cabin. So I think he really wanted to make sure that I go back.
Wow.
And yeah, he sent me back. But because there was an opportunity, and Moses, it was a peer pressure. Honestly, you know, when you left India, there were like 50 people to see you off.
Wow.
Now you go back to India saying, oh God, I messed up. It is an embarrassing.
You need to do it right.
So I just went in. I'm close to my sister, so I called her. Says, this is what has happened, and I want to go back to
Wow.
India. So she helped me to come back to Kenya.
Okay.
So I came back Kenya with a different passport and everything, and yeah, that's how it
So what
started.
happens now? You get a place, you're software
So
developing at home. Oh.
I used to stay as a paying guest
Uh-huh.
wherever. So the lady was very kind, and she allowed me to stay there for several months without paying.
Wow.
So and the paying guest, she also used to provide me with dinner, lunch,
Yeah.
dinner, but not all the time. So many times you would also end up going to your friend's place. You'll
These
say,
are
okay,
tough times, huh?
it was tough time, and if I tell you, they used to be like this bank was based in town in ICA building.
Mm.
So the guy would call me in the morning and says, "Come and show it to us what you have done." So you go in the morning. The guy would say, oh, "I'm a bit busy. Come at 4 o'clock." Now you have walked all the way from Westlands to town. Now you don't want to go back home and do something. So I used to literally go to Huru Park and sit under a tree
And wait.
and just wait,
Oh
wait,
my
wait.
God.
So those were good days, I think.
When you reflect in a
When you
way.
reflect in a way, those were really good days. I miss them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think every entrepreneur has those moments. Like I have memories of, things that people will never understand that you can go through, like running out of fuel in your car
Yeah.
or, having a child and not being able to pay the hospital bill to leave the hospital. But like the entrepreneurial struggle is real,
That is,
but when you look back, you look at it fondly.
yeah.
It reminds you that you are alive.
If you look at it, it's not really, I don't call them struggles. I call them love, uh, labor love, maybe. You are doing that labor, but you are loving that thing. So you don't feel that. You just go on and on and on. Nothing literally stops you.
Yeah. So tell me more about now. How does Craft Silicon come into being at that point?
So after that customer, it took me about 3 to 4 years to do all that thing.
Wow. So building up, are you
Slowly
hiring
by slowly.
people at this point, getting an office?
Just for
One
first
man
four
show.
years, it was one man show. And I think a lot of future truths, get spoken during that. So, as much as I'm a one-man person, when you go to present to a potential customer, you project as if you are a 10 people company, 15 people
Wow.
company.
You do what you have to do.
You do what you have to do. And interestingly, one time, one of the reporter who was interviewing me at some public place asked me, "So that means, Kamal, were you lying? You would go to a potential customer. I'm the only person, but I would still go to a potential customer and say, yeah, we are a 15 people company. We are based here. I have a full software ready." In my back of my mind, I know I have nothing. So he actually asked me in public saying, Kamal, so that means when you were starting, you were lying. For a moment, I had nothing to say. But then from somewhere, I got an answer. I said, no, I was not lying. I was just telling them the future truth.
Yes, I know. I've had those moments too as a startup, but you're trying to prove the point. Like I remember in my
Yeah.
business, my co-director at the time, we had an office but we didn't have a boardroom. Then we had, I think, DHL coming for a presentation at my company, Savvy. And we went and borrowed money from his mom to buy a boardroom table so that when the commercial director came, he'd see we had a boardroom with tables and every chair there. I think we had to send our employees away so that the chairs for the table were actually where those guys would be sitting
Oh,
normally.
guys. Yeah.
So you make it look like you're all good, but when they come back to the office, you then move the chairs from the boardroom table.
Same thing, same thing with me. And
Same
now,
stories, huh?
same stories. Yeah, same
So
stories.
4 years pass, Craft
Four
Silicon
years past,
now.
so that customer, I think, really helped me a lot. So there is the general manager for that bank used to be called Sheikh Ghulam Hussain.
That name sounds very
Yeah,
familiar.
it's a good
In
name.
fact, I think I know the
Yeah,
bank now, but I think I
yeah.
know they are, yeah.
And there was this other gentleman called Fred Maina. So they
Uh-huh.
really supported me. So once this bank was up and running, then I started, going out to different banks.
Pitching other ones.
Yeah,
And these are probably tier 2, tier 3 banks, huh?
tier 2, tier 3, and microfinances. So,
Uh-huh.
many people helped me on the way, all the way from James Mangi, because Equity was
Oh,
using our product.
even back then when there was still a building
Yes.
society, they were on
Yeah,
your
yeah.
platform?
They were on my platform.
Amazing.
Yeah. So Equity actually gave me a very good start. So
Wow.
after this bank, I got James Mangi to help me for Equity. Kimathi Mutwa, I don't know if you know the CEO for KREP, now it's CDN Bank.
When you was at Sydney, okay, yeah.
And there was this lady for Jamii Bora Bank called Ingrid Munro.
Oh,
And they literally helped me so much. And Yeah, so one after the other, I think that came in. And then, yeah, so one person became two, two became four. Today, Craft Silicon is reaching about 1,000 people now with about 6 to 7 different products. Uh,
What
and
sort of products are these? What do you do? I know it's
so
all financial services, but what are these products?
financial services. So we don't call ourselves as a fintech. We are an enabler for a financial institution. So we
Okay.
provide ERB platforms for banks. That's co-banking platforms,
Uh-huh.
lending platforms. We do digital products like mobile banking, internet banking, chatbots, credit scoring. Everything
Wow.
goes. So
It's almost a full life
the
cycle, huh?
full end to end. So I think that's something that has also helped us a lot, that if a customer comes to us, they don't have to go to anyone else for any other product. If they are with us on core, we can always sell them internet banking, mobile banking, or anything. If a bank is with us for a mobile banking, there is opportunity for us to cross sell co-banking platform as well. So we provide a whole suite of products for a financial
And
institution.
that is so cool because what it means is that even when you have these smaller SACCOs that become super SACCOs, and they move from paper-based to computer-based to mobile propositions, you have a solution for that, right?
Yes, several SACCOs both in the country as well as the continent. They use us.
What's your geographical footprint like in terms of where you're operating today with 1,000 employees?
So, in terms of a customer in Africa, more or less every country in Africa except the North and the South Africa, we don't have. But otherwise, you name the country, we are there, both Anglophone and Francophone.
Wow.
Kenya, Uganda, Zambia, Malawi, down, Botswana, on the other side, Ghana, Gambia, Nigeria, every Cameroon, everybody is with
Across the
us
board.
across the board. So that's in Africa. And then at some point, we also started getting some deals in India. I'm from India, as I mentioned.
Yes.
So I also ventured into Indian market. Microfinance market at that point was scaling up. So we went there with a microfinance product. Today, India is doing extremely well for us. The customers in India, not just India, but India, Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia.
Okay, that Asia side,
So
yes.
Southeast Asia is all what we cover from our offices in India. So we have two offices in India, one in Bangalore, which obviously everyone knows
Software
Bangalore. So,
development or
yeah,
Bengaluru, yeah.
Bangalore, yes, and one Ahmedabad, which is
Ah.
in the west.
What do you think are the key fundamental reasons? I mean, first of all, let's just start with the crazy side to this. This is a business born in Kenya,
Yeah,
now global,
that's
a
true.
1,000 employees,
Yeah.
Pan-African, multi-language, all this. What are the things that you think have made this business successful?
Okay, I would say I think the sheer commitment from me as well as my core team, plus understanding the customers and putting the right price point. Because at some point technology was considered to be an expensive services. We came up with a product where you are a small customer, we give you something that you can afford. You are a large customer, we give you more solutions and more modules, and you pay appropriately. So the price point also helped us a lot, plus understanding the customer. We understand the customer pretty well. So you go to a customer and don't say, this is my core banking system, change the way you work to fit a solution. But we understand them well. And if you look at some of the early speeches of James Monk, even one of the book that he had written, he had clearly mentioned that the growth of equity in those early days were because of the technology solution that was highly customized to that need. And I still remember, James would call me one day, in the evening and say, tomorrow I want to launch this product. Can we have it ready? He
Wow.
would sit overnight. Even he would, sit with us and say, no, let's do it like this.
James Wang himself.
Himself, yeah. I mean, so
Wow.
it has really helped me a lot to customize the product to suit what the market needs.
And being flexible and
Yeah,
responsive to what the customer needs.
yeah.
So those are kind of like the key principles that have
That's
taken
true.
you
I
where
think
they're.
that has helped us a
Yeah.
lot.
What's the size of the business now? I mean, are you in the
Craft
tens or hundreds of millions now?
Craft would be in the range of about 80-90 million dollar a year.
Turnover.
Yeah,
And that's growing annually.
it keeps growing.
With now, of course, India and other global markets in
Yeah.
place.
So when you combine all the customers sitting on Craft Silicon platform today, we reach about 120-130 million customers, end consumers using our products. So if I go to, let's say, a bank, and a bank has a million customers, you go to another bank has a 50,000 customers. When you aggregate all the customers using our product, easily crossing 120, 130 million customers.
Amazing. And then I think we were talking earlier, you talked to me a little bit about another key principle, which is the Craft Silicon Foundation.
Yeah.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and sort of the reason why you're doing that.
So I exactly don't know why it ended up starting. I think it was just the upcoming of me and my family and my wife. We felt that education is very critical because we had challenges in terms of getting the education.
Ah,
So we thought we want to do something into the education space by providing education. And we always felt that we are an innovative company. We just didn't want it to, roll out cash and computers across to give them. We felt we want to do it in an innovative fashion.
yeah,
So what we did is we took a bus, we put the computers inside the bus, we put the solar panels on the top. It's a fully internet enabled bus. Now this bus goes and parks into slum areas. Students will come inside and we give them free computer education.
wonderful.
And then at some point we also formulated a formula where any country that generates certain amount of revenue and above, foundation has to go. So Silicon Foundation now operates in Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, India, now getting into Cameroon, DRC, because these are the countries that are generating good revenue for us, and we feel it is obligation to
Fantastic.
yeah.
So, where do you see Craft Silicon going, the next 2 to 5 years? What are your thoughts around the next steps? Because it sounds to me like the trajectory is incredible already.
So craft, I keep getting several offers from either for mergers, for acquisitions, but craft I don't want to touch it. And the reason I don't want to do that is the revenues from Craft Silicon is helping me to start other businesses.
Aha.
I don't really have to go to an investor and prove my point that I want to try this out. If I feel that there's an opportunity here, I just go to Craft Silicon, pick up something, some cash, use it out. If it works, well and good. If it doesn't work, we forget and then continue from there. So it has given me a lot of flexibility in terms of remaining innovative, in terms of figuring it out, what new business that we could venture inside.
Fantastic. Now, one of the conversations I think that we had it with you, I think almost 2 years ago, and I think that was when we're discussing Little Cab, but let's go back a little bit before Little Cab. And I think there's a philosophy that I love that resonates with me as well, because like you as an entrepreneur, I've never really had funding. I kind of have grown the business organically through revenues. Possibly that's why we're pretty small till today, 20 years later. But I like it that way. I like the fact that we control our destiny. Can you share with me a little bit about your journey? Because unless I'm mistaken, your business has grown organically without any funding to date, correct?
That's true. So we have no funding.
Yeah.
We have everything is self-funded. Everything is organical. So we generate revenues and then use that revenue to grow. So when we started Craft Silicon, obviously I think the investment thing was not there. Business is where you start a business with your own funds and then look for a partner, look for somebody else to grow it. So that's how it grew. And then I think the business per itself grew pretty well. So there was never a need for me to go and look for an investor. We, at some point, and I don't know if you know that, we got an investor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we got a small investment from one of the local investment company. It didn't really work out pretty well for us, so we bought them back.
You took the money back to them.
Yeah, we took them the money, give them some small return. What used to happen, and I don't blame them, as a founder, we always had a long-term vision.
Yes.
But these investors had a short-term vision because they wanted to scale the company pretty quickly and then hand it over to somebody else. So it didn't really work out well. The boardrooms were, always arguments.
Wow, it was just not the right vibe, huh?
And it was not the right vibe. So we felt that allow us to buy back. So we sat back on the table, say this is not working. So we just agreed and we bought them back.
Fantastic. Yeah. Now I want to talk a little bit about another topic I think that's close to your heart. And I think as we look at Silicon Savannah, and given that you've managed to grow organically and you've scaled globally, is this question around the startups that in Kenya today seem to be, for lack of a better word, addicted to funding. Every time you see a failure, I think there's been like 4 or 5 companies this year, well-known, prominent, well-funded startups in Kenya, in Silicon Savannah, that have basically gone into either administration or completely closed down. And I'm wondering, because I remember you wrote something on LinkedIn around this, as I did. And, what are your thoughts around that? Because even me, when I come from my historical perspective, when I try to talk to guys for funding, many of them just tell me, Moses, go get a job and then use your salary to start your business. Nobody those days, 20, 30 years ago, would give you money. So you had to literally sell, get a paying client, and that is what paid the bills and salaries and all. But what are your thoughts around that, especially for the young entrepreneurs who might want to do what you have done?
So I'm not against getting an investment. All I'm saying is if you get the investment, use the money in the right fashion. Because at some point, do your projections in such a way that this money that you are spending today is going to finish at some point. So when that money finishes, are you in a position that the company is generating enough revenue to sustain? Because what's also happening, and I think we are just blindly following the aspects from the West,
Yeah.
where you take one investment, by the time first investment is getting over, you go and get the other one and the other one and then the third one, and at some point you list it out to
It's
the
just
public.
loading. Yeah. Yeah.
But for Africa, I think I feel, and these are my views. I mean, you don't have to follow what I'm saying. I feel that if you take an investment, your business plan has to be solid enough that by the time the investment is coming to an end, the money is getting used, you have a paying customers, which helps you to sustain. Unless and until you are operational profitable, it becomes very difficult. Otherwise, the CEOs would end up not growing the business, but just looking for investment after the investment. So if he is full time looking for an investment, who is growing the business? Yeah.
Exactly. They're not running the business. They're just looking for funding to feed the machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's a very pragmatic view in the sense that it's not about the funding. It's whether you have a plan for the funding.
That's
and
true.
basically, at the end of the day, whether the core business actually sustainable. Which brings me actually to my next point, I think, which is Little Cab. Yeah, I want us to talk a little bit about Little Cab, how it started, how it's doing, how you are differentiated from the other taxi hailing services. And of course, you're one of the largest locally homegrown. Maybe talk about a little bit about the journey of Little Cab as well.
So the way Little started is, I mean, I had never thought of getting into this business at all. So one of the days, Dr. Bitange Demo, he sits on our board for Craft Silicon.
Oh, really? Okay.
He's a board member for us. And one day we were at Java, at ABC Place, and that time the Uber drivers were striking. So just during some general conversation, he says, Kenya should have its own app because every now and then these drivers keep on striking, and it's a big. From there, it says, okay, why can't we try it out something? I said, yeah, we can try it out, but we are providing tech on one side. I have no experience
start?
how to. Plus, the disadvantage that we had, Moses, was. Kraft has been a B2B provider, but a product like Little is a B2C product. So it's a retail mass market product. And our knowledge on running a retail product was literally not there. So there again, I think Dr. Bitange came in and he said, why can't we talk to Safaricom? Because they are a retail, player. They have all these consumers. They know how to manage the retail consumer base. They know how to market the product into the retail space. Why don't we walk into Safaricom? Maybe they can, help us. So that I remember that was Friday. This is what we were talking with Bitange. Then he said, I'll set up a meeting with Bob Collymore, the then CEO. So he set up the meeting on Tuesday.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's just 3-4 days down the line. He said, let's go to, So we went there. Again, that meeting with Bob was around 4 or 5 in the evening.
Okay.
So we went there. So I was not prepared, but Bob asked me, so you have the product ready?
This keeps happening to you.
Yeah, it keeps happening to me. And obviously, I say, yeah, product is there.
You say yes, then figure it out.
So we said, product is ready. He says, when can we launch it? So he said, give me about 3-4 weeks, we would launch the product. And he said, okay, fine. He looks at the diary, sets up a date there, which is about 3-4 weeks down the line, and said, this day, 4 o'clock, okay, I'll book my secretary will book it up. Let's launch it out.
Are you kidding me?
And
then and there.
And between that day and 3 weeks down the line, Moses, 24 hours we were in the office.
No sleep.
No sleep. So I have a very good committed team. So we used to literally not go home at all. Even in my campus, we have washrooms, we have sleeping areas.
Oh.
We were there 24/7.
Coding, building,
coding, building.
UX.
So we came up with a buggy product first time, but Bob was able to launch it.
I was actually at the launch,
Oh, you
I
were at the
came, I was there, I
launch.
was blogging and they invited us. I think we met when you were launching,
Yeah,
yes.
so he launched it, and obviously the problem started after the launch. Several troubles, problems. But
As
over the
expected, yeah.
over the course, we figured out how to solve it, and yeah, it was an amazing journey. I mean, I cannot thank them, Bob, Safaricom, Bitange, and my team. We literally worked 24/7.
And you created this thing basically out of thin air, from
Yeah,
zero.
from zero.
Fantastic. I think so many entrepreneurs need to hear that sometimes you make the commitment,
Yeah,
then
and
figure it
then
out.
figure it out.
Yeah. And I'm just kind of curious because I think there's several things I want to talk about Little Cab here. Number one is the model, because I think you're sort of different from most of the other ones. And that's what I think has kept sustainable. Number two, I think what is the current geographical footprint of the business? And then I think number three is your driver compensation philosophy, which I think deviates considerably from how some of the other global players operate.
So in those early days, again, I think a lot of things I learned from Bob.
Uh-huh.
So he at some point mentioned, Little was not growing because, yeah, people were there, but consumers were not growing, and I felt that the price are higher. But Bob says, don't get into the price war. Let's figure it out what we can do differently. So from that day onwards, we have never got into the price war. And what he taught me, I think it was a master class for me.
Uh-huh.
And he said, look, if you get into the price war, you are never going to win. And you can't win these bigger players who are funded heavily. So you can't win Uber in terms of price war. You can't win Bolt and the others on the price war. Let's sit down together, figure out what we are going to do different so the consumers are willing to pay higher, or give them something different that the price doesn't become an obstacle. So I think then the journey started in terms of reinventing our business model, and we felt that instead of going after a retail customer, if we go behind a corporate customer, where we sign in a corporate, and the staff of those corporate, when they're moving around, they use Little. And then give them so many things in that product that the customer would not just look price as an entry point. So today Little is slightly expensive than all the offerings in the country, but a corporate would still use Little because the bells and whistles that come along with the product, things like maker checker, approval process, integrating to their ERP
It's been
platform,
tuned for the corporate
so
environment.
well.
Yeah.
I mean, there are corporates who were with us. They felt the price is slightly higher. They left us and they've come back to us again after, because the amount of thing that we give them. No.
There's so many value adds.
So many value adds.
So it's the same philosophy. Listen to the customer, focus on the customer.
Yeah.
Give them what they want.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's has worked.
And then the geographical side, how big is this
again,
business?
I think Little is also not funded. We are just
organic. Wow.
it's just organic. So again, when we make money, when a country makes money, then we use that money to open another country. So currently, Little is in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Ghana. 5 countries. Yeah.
Fantastic. And let's talk about the driver philosophy, compensation, because you're a little bit different to the other guys there.
Again, I think it boils down to, on a corporate customer, when a corporate staff is taking a ride, he would expect some differentiation. He would like the driver to treat him nicely, because that corporate staff could be the CEO of a corporate or a senior official. So we had to make sure the quality of our drivers was well there. That was one. The other one we also had to figure out is, we realized that the drivers were canceling a lot of corporate rides. And when we did some research and meeting with these drivers, they felt that, you see, in the morning, the drivers are willing to take cash rides. They wanted to cash ride so that they can fuel the car to operate throughout the day. So in the morning, they would cancel the corporate rides because they want cash rides. In the afternoon, they were willing to take corporate rides. That was one. The other one is they also used to cancel a lot of corporate rides because they never used to get the money immediately. They would take a corporate ride, then at the end of the week, when us or Uber or them pay the driver, that is the time they used to get the money. So we worked out there, and we allow the drivers to withdraw this cash immediately. So he takes a
Oh,
corporate ride, immediately he can withdraw the cash. We partner with petrol station. He want to fill his car. We know how the driver is doing. He can go to a petrol station and fill his car without actually giving out the cash. We do small ticket lending to these drivers. So we do all that things to make sure that the drivers do really love. And I can bet, Moses, today if a driver gets Uber, Bolt, and because all drivers have all the apps.
that's
But
true.
but
Yeah.
if he gets a request from other provider and a request from Little, without a doubt he will pick Little.
And that's so wonderful again, because again, I keep hearing this recurrent theme: focus on the customer, focus on the partner, be relevant, remove the friction, make it accessible. I feel like there's these sort of key principles that sort of carry over from one business to the next to the next.
And I think price is very critical, but price is not the only factor that drives the business. So today, I mean, one very interesting finding that we have now found out on Little platform is a lot of ladies throughout the day they are using other apps.
Aha.
You see, because Little is slightly expensive, so throughout the day they would use other apps. But from 6 onwards, 7 onwards, the number of ladies taking Little grows up like this.
Aha.
Because Little is one of the safest ride hailing platforms. So throughout the day they would be taking any other ride because they want to save some coins here
Yeah.
and there. But 6, 7 onwards, the number of ladies that come to Little is just shoots up because they feel so safe on Little. They don't mind paying a bit higher, but they want to make sure that they are safe.
Wow. And what about the revenue share side? Because I think you give a higher percentage than the others to the driver.
Compared to the bold, I mean, our competitors,
Yeah.
our drivers get some
Slightly more money. So it's actually more rewarding to them as well.
Plus, we are very transparent. Today, if you get the invoice from Little, it's so well clearly said in a very simple terms, not those jargons that the drivers are not able to understand. So when they see a Little invoice, they exactly know how they are making money.
Brilliant. So I want to talk a little bit about where you're going now. And I think there's a new initiative you're calling BluBeetle.
Yeah.
This is your foray into generative AI. And of course, generative AI is on everyone's lips. And I think within that context, you've also built something called Bank GPT. And I'm hoping maybe you can talk about both of those, the new business and what that is and what you're planning to do in these areas.
So we have so much data that sits on our platform, so much. So at some point we felt we want to start, using that data to come up with interesting AI models. And help our customers to make the right decision. So that's where BluBeetle came into the picture. BluBeetle is an AI company that is going to work on AI products. And the first we launched, we have not commercially released any products from BluBeetle, but the plan is to release 2-3 products in the coming months. One obviously is the statement analyzer. So when you upload your statement, or you have a bank statement, your pay slips are there, your M-Pesa statements are there. You upload any document, system will be able to analyze that and give you the right insights. That's one product that we are currently testing, and the other product that we are testing, which is I think more interesting, is generative AI product, where we give flexibility to the customer to use any language, either text, audio, and get the right response from the computer based on the data that it has. And that's what we want to call it. It's a bank GPT. It sits inside your mobile banking. So you have your mobile banking, log into your mobile banking, then press some buttons there and start asking the questions. Just the way you would ask us somebody from the bank staff. Ask them and let the system answer you the way somebody else is answering.
Fantastic. And I have a statement I came up with when I started talking and writing about AI. I call it, don't give a human a robot's job. We're reaching a future where these LLMs and even the small language models are getting so powerful, like we saw even with the launch the other day with Apple Intelligence. We're getting to a point where the consumer doesn't need to know what's happening in the background. But what they need is a solution that solves their problem in a cost-effective and pragmatic way.
And what's going to happen is the new generation is now growing up with this as granted, as a product that is granted. So unless and until your products don't have the AI components inside, you would be left behind.
Yesterday I was giving a talk at my daughter's school, and I was talking about digital literacy and digital rights, because there's this year of the African child where digital is the focus. And I asked the students, who are all under, I think, 12 years old, if any of them know ChatGPT, and all their hands went up. And I was telling them, when I was growing up in university, my ChatGPT was the school library or the university library, and if the book wasn't there, I had to hunt down the guy who had the book or the girl who had the book so I could do my assignment. And now you go to Google, you go to ChatGPT, and you get the answer to the question. I don't think they even realize how magical that is, but they take it for granted that this is completely and absolutely normal.
Yeah, I mean, but again, can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
So, what do you think? Do you think the human brains, especially as the childs are growing up, they are going to be less smarter because everything is there? They don't really need to put their brain in strain to get a solution. So, do you think human brains are going to diminish? What do you think?
I think there's a very real issue there, because even I will confess that I am doing work probably of 3 or 4 people because of generative AI. So is the brain diminishing? I don't think so. I think what we're doing is we're using it differently. And we're saying that maybe sub-level or lower level functions, we're sort of delegating to the AI.
Okay.
But where we need to get creative, where we need to think deeply, where we need to sort of add value on top of the base functions is where the human now becomes unique and irreplaceable compared to an AI. In fact, I think it was Jensen Wang, of the founder and the CEO of this company that's building all the GPUs, NVIDIA. And he said that the problem in the future of work is not going to be that AI will replace you. He says that the person using AI is going to replace you.
Yeah.
And that's the big challenge right now. So the question is almost like, where are you devoting your time in terms of your intellect? Is it doing the things a computer can do, or is it doing the things that allow you to realize a computer can do all this stuff, and then you as a person on top of it is able to amplify your ability from a creative and intellectual capability? And I don't think they're getting weaker. I think what they're doing is they're spending more time less focused on the basics and more on the higher level things.
Okay.
And I think it's the idea that I think he also said that, right now, because of generative AI, everyone is becoming a form of a programmer, because when you do a prompt, it's a form of programming. Like when I'm prompting ChatGPT, I mean, because I'm a writer, I'm a blogger, I write incredibly long prompts, but incredibly detailed. I tell this thing exactly what I want, how I want it. And when it comes back with feedback, even if I've given it PDFs and inputs, the detail is actually a form of programming in a way, because instead of using syntax and code, I'm using natural language, but I'm coding it. I'm telling it in exactly the ways I want it to work. Of course, it's not always perfect. You have to keep guiding it and reinforcement learning as you do so. But I think these kids are going to be incredible, because the connection between the idea and the outcome is so much shorter now. And I'm going to give you a personal experience, which I wrote about, which was when I was growing up. I was very fortunate. My dad was a very IT progressive guy.
Okay.
He was a civil engineer. He was one of the first, I think, in the country to get a structural analysis and design software, spent thousands of dollars buying it, and that helped him streamline his workflow. But in doing all this, even before that, when I think I was about 11 years old, he allowed me, because I wanted to get into computers, to go to a computer school. So I was this 11, 12-year-old sitting in a training class, working on things like DB3, DB4, DBase4, Lotus 123, and everyone else in the room was like financial accountants and managers computerizing their skill sets on computers. And they look at this young kid and wonder, what are you doing here? Then at home, we had something called a ZX Spectrum computer, which, I learned how to do basic on. And I remember very clearly when my brother and I, because my dad didn't want us to buy games, they were expensive, he'd give us the books. He'd buy the books when we went on trips to Europe, where you had to do the coding in BASIC and you could create a game on the computer.
Okay.
And I remember that before we understood the syntax and how it works, with my older brother, who was also into IT, you kind of thought you could write into the computer what you want. Now, believe it or not, Kamal, what we're seeing now, my mind was imagining something like 30, 35 years ago. More than that, 40 years ago.
Okay.
And I was trying as a child to say, computer, do this for me. But I didn't know the language at the time, which was then, when we got the books, then me and my brother learned how to code. And then we would say, okay, let's give this character infinite lives. Or if there's a limitation somewhere, we could look at the code and figure out this is the function that makes this happen. And that's a magical moment, I think, as you know, as a coder, when you understand it almost like language. You're like, oh, this means this means that, this means this. So if I do this, if I loop that, then have infinite lives.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like where my love of computers and technology began. But it's taken 40 years from that initial idea that before we learned how to do the basic coding, that you have to speak to a computer in a certain language.
Yeah.
Now we're speaking in natural language and the computer knows what we mean and it does what we want. That's magic.
Yeah, it's, oh my
So,
God.
so for me, it's like everyone's a coder, but now
Yeah.
they have the dialect to talk to the
Yes.
computer, which is natural language.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, now multimodal.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah. So we're going into a place where it now understands video, it understands things. So it's just, and even the guys who build the original transformers, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, are shocked at what these things are doing. The guys who created the transformer technology and the white papers that formed the basis for ChatGPT, they themselves are in shock what these computers are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, these
I
GPUs.
Can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
So I want to come back to you, Kamal, because I think we're almost at the end of our time. And I want to kind of maybe hear a little bit about the journey, the journey from then to here, 20, I think that was 2020, the year 2000 to now, that's 24 years. What have you learned as an entrepreneur? What have you learned as a technology leader? What have you learned as a business leader? And also, what are the things that you would want young entrepreneurs from Kenya, from any part of the world to know or appreciate in terms of what it takes to do what you've done?
I think maybe the most important thing I can share with them is that they need to be very patient. Don't expect the results. Don't expect the company to grow multifold in weeks, months. It's a journey that you have to really walk. It's a journey that you need to walk slowly and keep on thinking during the day. Don't be scared if you have to divert from what was originally planned. Yeah, and don't give up. I've also seen a lot of entrepreneurs starting something, because the guy next door has done that and it has worked. Let me also try and do that. And then somewhere down the line, they don't succeed. They just give it up.
But maybe because they're trying to do a copycat, it wasn't their passion. It wasn't what they loved.
Passion is so critical because as you are building your own business, you will go through so much hardship. Personally, financially,
I know.
stress would be there. So many things, and if you don't love what you are doing, you would easily give up. So get into something that you really love. Wait for it. If you can't figure it out, first try to figure out what you love. Then get into the business. Don't start the business and then fall in love. First fall in love and then start something around it.
Wow. So that's the kind of like your experience and what you've learned along. And then any other advice that you'd give other people to consider?
That's in my view, that's the basic. It's most important because once you have that in place, I think then other things are going to fall in place. You don't have to wait, especially in the tech business. You don't have to look for an investor first and then start the business. You can always start the business and over the way, if you really feel that you need some help, then and get it. Understand the market, understand the customer. And copycat is something that really don't try to get in. Sometimes you have to do something, but otherwise try to be genuine.
And what's next for Kamal? I think there was something exciting you shared with me earlier that is on the horizon. I don't know if you're comfortable sharing it in these conversations, but I'd love to hear that as well for our audience.
I can share. So all these companies that I've been running up until now, they have organically grown. It takes 5-7 years to grow where we are at the moment. I've never experienced the life of an entrepreneur along with an investor, and I want to give it a try this time.
You're tired of the bootstrapping. Try something a little bit different.
Not actually tired. I just want to experience
that side.
And I want to bring in all the experience that I have to work with an investor, so that I don't want to get an investor and then blow up their money and then go bankrupt one day in that company. So I want to make sure I get the right investor. I work with them, and I want to get into the so-called unicorn space in the shortest possible time.
Wow.
Yeah, and let's see. I hopefully I'll be able to do that. But if I can't do that, I would still be happy that I learned something new.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Come
And this particular product is into the digital lending space. Yeah, it's in digital.
So it's going to be more of a fintech, if I'm hearing you correctly.
That's true. Yeah.
Wow. And I'm guessing it's going to use the platforms you've already built, the
core platforms,
AI.
the AI, the generative. I think we are going to combine all that. Yeah. So
Great.
Yeah.
So, Kamal, I mean, you've talked about a lot of things, but as we wind up, I think, is there any thing you'd like to say in terms of where people can find you, how you might want to work with them through, the different businesses? I'd really appreciate it if you could also give them a chance to see how they can find you and your businesses to engage you.
I'm a very introvert person, Moses. So you won't find me in social places.
Yeah.
But the best place to find me is social media. I'm LinkedIn. I'm very active. So you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me. Kamal@craftsilicon.com. That's my
Okay.
email. I don't mind sharing with your audience. Yeah, and I'm very accessible. Walk into me with anything that you have. We can work together. We can, whatever you can learn from me, I'm willing to share.
Fantastic. Kamal, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and an honor. I'm even shocked at how quickly we set this up.
Thank
I
you,
reached out
Moses.
to you after the Standard Chartered event when they launched their new mobile lending app, and I think within 3-4 days we're here. So again, I really do appreciate you making the time. You're a busy guy. You're ready to build a unicorn. You got 1,000 employees to take care of, and yet you are, on our Pure Digital Passion podcast. So thank you so much. It's a great pleasure, and I want to wish you all the best going forward with your new endeavors. And more importantly, I think keep inspiring us and keeping us honest in terms of, the idea that the entrepreneurship journey can actually be achieved in a very sort of humble and frugal way.
Moses, you are a very respectable person. I always respected you. So when you asked me to come in, obviously I have to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there you have it, the story of Kamal Budhabhatti from Craft Silicon, Little, and now BluBeetle in the generative AI space. Kamal has an amazing story. I hope all of you have seen and heard things here that are important and valuable, and hope in some way that these things can, add value to your life, your business, your ideas, your dreams and hopes in the way that Kamal has also achieved his. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next one.